This computer. Awesome. So, hi, this is Kathy with Limitless Women Rising. And I have to say, we've got a juicy guest with us today. Limitless Women Rising is all about this divine feminine calling that's coming in to our lives to show up in a different way. And oftentimes we might have little challenges that keep us from showing up and shining our beautiful light. So we have a very special guest. And I have to say, I've been stalking her on YouTube for a little while because she's got some of the most beautiful activations there around healing sexual womb trauma and especially the Ho'oponopono practice that she has. So Sandra Rolus is a timeline therapist and does beautiful release work around this kind of topic. So Sandra, can you tell us, I mean, even just beginning with like, what is sexual trauma and who has it? Who needs to be concerned with this?
It's a good question because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what sexual trauma is. When we hear it, we might think it's something very extreme, like being raped or having incest history. But I do feel that sexual trauma or any type of trauma is something that happened to us that we were not able to fully process or integrate in the moment that it happened because it was too overwhelming. And that can cause contraction in the body. It can also cause some disconnect in the brain where it's like, overload. And when we hear about trauma, or we think it's a car accident. So to kind of redefine that, I think most women had some type of sexual trauma, and it could be something that we may have dismissed, where we felt unsafe walking to our car in a parking lot and feeling just like, ooh, is something going to happen? I don't feel safe as a woman. Or maybe there was some inappropriate words or inappropriate touch going on at any age that made us feel unsafe to be a woman or a girl. So that's kind of my definition when we talk about sexual trauma, so that people can understand that it could be many, many different things. And it's not to say that we might dismiss something and say, oh, that was barely had an impact on me, but our body remembers. So even if we think it's something small, it could be something big that is still blocking us in our life.
Yeah. I think I told you when I was 5 years old and playing naked in my baby pool back then. I ran around naked all the time. But that first time that I had an energy, like you said, it might not even be, it's pre-verbal. I had no idea what it really meant, but it was like that shut down and that it still lives within us. But
yeah, and we remember, our cells remember, the body remembers. So when we start doing this work, we go on a deep cell level to kind of clear that out, because it's back then it might have been our way of surviving and not making it worse. It was just our body kind of shutting down. But we don't need to hold on to that anymore, because now we're coming from a different perspective. We have more wisdom, we have more discernment, we have more power. So it's time for all of us, for all women and men, to kind of let go of all of that old energy and step into something new.
Right. And I just love tell us, how did you come to this work?
For me, it was my own personal journey of, when I was young, there was a sexual predator in my environment that made me feel extremely unsafe. I was never physically raped, but the fear of being raped was there. So when I start looking at that, I think for my body, it must have been equally traumatic than actually being raped, because I never knew what is going to happen, when is he going to come in, and that really shut me down for many, many years. And my own personal work of just coming back to a normal, relaxed state was a long journey. And when I was in my 40s, that's when I started to look at the sexual part of it, which is situated in our lower chakras. So I had done a lot of personal work, opening up my heart, learning how to open up my voice and to express myself, to have boundaries. But there was still something in those lower energy centers, in the lower chakras, that I hadn't dealt with. And that was really like the shadow work that I needed to do. And once I started doing that, once I found the courage to really step into it, it was like day and night difference who I was.
Mm.
And that's been my main drive to really share that with other women, because I, from a personal perspective, know how much that changed my life.
Well, just the simple things, and I think we probably have a whole generation of women. I'm kind of a pinup girl for this as well. Kind of the crummy dad, or maybe our dads just weren't around for us in the way that we would like, and so we pick up these little coping mechanisms. I'm going to be strong and independent, and I can do it myself. And I've been holding the torch of, I'm not going to depend on a man because they always go away. It's like over time, that's just not a natural space from which women should show up in the world. So how do we begin? I mean, we get maybe to this awareness. How do we unwind that?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. In my experience, working with a lot of women and working on my own stuff, I can always trace it back to before we were born, when we were in our mother's womb, and then the way we were brought into the world, and our very first relationships with men and women, which is our mother and our father. And how it's so interesting how we keep recycling the story over and over again. So whenever you have issues with women in your life or men in your life, it's good to go back and look at the very first relationship, which was with your mother and your father. And for some of us, we had an absent father, or I grew up a couple of years. I lived with my birth parents, but then I think I was about 3 years old, and I was taken in by my grandmother and my grandfather, and they raised me. But my grandmother had a lot of masculine energy. She was kind of the boss in the house, and she was calling the shots. So on all levels, my perception of what a balanced female, balanced male was all skewed. And I had to figure it out along the way. And that's what a lot of us need to do, is kind of reassess, reevaluate, and then rebalance, because what felt normal to me then shows up in my relationships, and then I'm not able to see the red flags, because to me the red flags are normal. So we have to do the unwinding and the unraveling within ourselves first, and then when we know who we are, what we want, and if we find balance within ourselves between masculine and feminine, then we can start attracting more nourishing relationships. But again, every relationship in my book, the purpose of every relationship is to teach us about ourselves, what is unhealed within ourselves, what is important to us. So if we learn to take that responsibility of not pointing fingers to the players in our life that are just reenacting our birth story or our childhood story, and when we really start recognizing, oh my God, this is just an aspect of something that was going on between me and my father, or between me and my brother, or my sister, or my mother with this person, we can take back that responsibility and actually make a conscious decision. Do I still want to do this? I don't need to do this anymore, because I get it, and then we can take it to the next level.
I like that. I think a lot of women at this point in time, they've had that strong. It must be confusing for these poor guys too, but I feel like now they're looking for that relationship where they're going to feel more taken care of, and it's actually because we haven't been open for that. So
yeah. And it's the men and the women, because everybody's kind of confused. We're all walking around with our childhood wounds, and and it's all fine and dandy when everything's going well, but when the first triggers come up, we it's like we go back into the 4-year-old, 5-year-old version of who we were, that wants to be loved, that wants to be held, that wants to be understood, and it's like two wounded children in communication. So it's very important to take your responsibility for yourself,
Mm.
and the relationship is a beautiful mirror for that, but really own it. Be like, okay, if something comes up, I'm going to look at it. Where does this originate? Where does this come from?
Yeah, that's
And one more thing, sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of women that I work with come to me with a certain level of frustration, where it's like, I've done so much already. When is it finally going to end? But it's like, there's always another layer. And be okay if something that you thought you dealt with 20 years ago, if something comes up, just be open to it with the ebb and the flow of it. And if we don't resist it, then we can work through it much faster.
Yeah. And I think especially now we're being called to a whole new level. So it might be stuff that you feel like you find, completely dealt with before. I've had some stuff pop up. It's like, oh, there it is. And like you said, without the resistance, like, okay, a new message, a new variation on that. But it's been really interesting to see the things popping up lately. So for the strong, independent, single girl doing it on her own all this time, like me, like how do you invite people like us to find that space? I'm ready to open up to find that new dance between the masculine and feminine in my next relationship. So
Yes,
really
I
start.
think yeah. I mean, I've been in the same position. I was a single mom for almost 10 years with 2 toddlers, and I had to be the man and the woman, and I had no support team around me. My mom was young when she got me, so when she became a grandmother, she was still young and she wanted to enjoy her life. So it wasn't like, oh, grandma, can you take care of the kids? Anytime I wanted to do something for me, I had to find a babysitter, or there was just no support team around me. And when I look back at that period in time, I was really in my masculine, because one, I was in survival mode for myself. And on top of that, I had 2 vulnerable children that the mama lion came out as well. So there were different aspects of trying to survive. It was mainly a survival mechanism that came up, which pushed me into the masculine, where I was creating and operating from the mind. This is my goal. This is what I want. This is what I need to do to be safe, to live a life that is somewhat pleasant. And over the years, I have learned that I was in this pattern. There was a routine that when I was on my own, I was a strong, independent woman, very much in the masculine as well, but still very feminine. So I would attract these men into my life. And then I would be like, oh yeah, now let me be the woman, because I've been carrying this burden for so long. This all happens on an unconscious level, of course, back then. And at the end of the relationship, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. So I really fell into those old traps and old patterns in the relationship. Now, then I would go back being on my own, and then I would lick my wounds, take it to another level, do more personal work. Now, in my last relationship that I'm in, I was able to marry the two together. I was able to still be the feminine and allow the man to be the man and do what he needed to do. And at the same time, I didn't give up on my independence. I didn't give up on my creativity. And I started creating, not from the masculine, but more from the feminine, which is more in the flow of, what is my intuition telling me? Can I trust this? Yes, no. Instead of having these very set goals, and this is what I need, this is my deadline, this is what I need to do. So it's been a really beautiful experience for me to realize and discover that I can be both. I can be the feminine in the relationship and still build a business and still do stuff for myself. But it happened only because I was willing to do my inner work before I stepped into this relationship.
Right.
I really started seeing, I was looking at all my relationships prior to this one, and I was asking myself the question, what do all of these relationships have in common? What's the common denominator? It was me. It was me. So I had to take full responsibility for my participation, and that just put me on an all new level of healing, which I said was working with the shadow. What is this feminine energy, and what's happening with the masculine, and why do I all of a sudden make myself smaller or bigger, or I'm just not me anymore? So working with the womb healing and deep forgiveness work is absolutely an important part, and mainly forgiving yourself. Because when I was becoming aware of all these relationships and how I co-created them, I had some deep forgiveness work to do myself.
Yeah. And oftentimes I think we think of forgiveness as something we're doing externally, and it's like, no, it's so much also the internal work too. So that's why I love Ho'oponopono and the beautiful. I recommend your video to everybody that I work with. It's so beautiful. Your voice is so soothing, and it's about, focusing on the other person, the circumstance, and the individual. And I love to listen to it just before I go to bed, because you just come to this spaciousness about the whole thing, releasing the judgment, the space of grace just before you slip off into slumber for the night. But so for those who aren't familiar, tell us what Ho'oponopono is all about, and how you work with it.
Okay, so if you want to know about the origin of the Ho'oponopono, I suggest that you Google it and read the whole story. It's a really beautiful story. But the gist of it is that we use the prayer to really heal the energy between two people, or the energy in the relationship with yourself, the relationship you have with yourself. So you can use it to very specifically, let's say that you had a fight with a friend and you want to do the Ho'oponopono work. You can visualize that person sitting in front of you and saying the prayer with the intention to heal that relationship again. Now, let's say that you have something happened in your life where, because of your interaction with another person, you really feel like that is still blocking you in your life. And that could be something very extreme, something that happened that you didn't want to have happen, but you still on some level feel that that situation is blocking you from being joyful, from moving on in your life. You can also use the Ho'oponopono to clear the energy between you and that person. And it's almost like you're saying, I'm taking back my power because you're no longer going to hold me in this position. And then you can use the Ho'oponopono to liberate yourself, to free yourself. Because that's the ultimate goal of forgiveness anyway. It's never about the other person, really. It's about yourself and setting yourself free. So even if something really traumatic happened to you, the people that are listening, and you can still like feel that energy of that person somehow, you can use the Ho'oponopono to clear the energy between the two of you so that you can really move on in your life.
Yeah. And I love all the YouTubes. I just have to circle back because I just love that story. So tell us about where you came from and what it was like coming here to the United States.
Yes, I was born in Belgium. And about 6 years ago, I moved to the United States. And back in Belgium, I was doing group work, workshops. And then when I moved to the United States, I had to totally reinvent and be in a state of total surrender, because I didn't know what it was going to look like, what I would be doing here in the United States. And it was just a process of trusting and surrendering. And that was actually my very first YouTube video was about that. Like, I'm here and I don't know what the next step will be. And just step by step, listening to the guidance, listening to my own intuition, trying things out, not being afraid to fail, because that's kind of it. You just put it out there and see, okay, is anybody interested?
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful process.
I can't imagine anything more terrifying. She said her guides guided her to take this intimate, sacred work she's doing about womb healing and put it out on YouTube. Like, what did that feel like?
That was an interesting experience. Because back then, I on my website, I had a private session, which was all about womb healing. And I got this message: you have to put this out on YouTube for free. And I'm like, what? This is, I still have to pay the bills and pay the rent. But, I was then just feeling into it, going through that internal process. And it was like so clear to me that you just have to trust. I don't know what's going to come of this, but you just have to do it. And that's really what elevated my channel to the next level, what really opened it up. And I was receiving so many messages from women all over the world saying, thank you for offering this for free. It really changed my life. And I was like, okay. And then the channel kept growing. And then people started reaching out. We want to come to Sedona. We want to do a retreat with you. We want to do private sessions. So it was such a beautiful example of the more you give, it just comes back to you. And you sometimes don't know from where it's going to come, but you have to trust that if you are from your heart offering something that is of value, you're always supported. The universe will support you.
Yeah. And like you said, that's so, you've modeled the divine feminine way of being, where if you tried to put pen to paper and figure out how this is going to happen, you couldn't have possibly have directed it from this space now. You just have to, that divine feminine of trusting within and listening to that intuition. And I just love how you flow with everything. And now you've got videos that have been seen over 100,000 times. And I mean, what a gift, So much of this is coming out for women.
Yeah. One of the videos has 1,002,000.
Oh,
views. Yes. Yeah. 1,200,000. Yeah, so you can see there's definitely people are ready to receive that.
Well, that's astounding. And like you said, just to me, as I started working with more women, I was amazed at how many women have this kind of thing. So 1.2 million. So, if there was shame keeping us from thinking that this was to be shared, or if we thought it was too insignificant, like there is nothing too insignificant. If it's within our body, it's now time, and you've provided such a beautiful space for us to bring it and allow it to be healed. So thank you for that. The other thing we had touched on was just the challenge. I think a lot of women also having not had trusting relationships with other women up until now. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you think that came about and how we can resolve that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is just my personal opinion about it. But when I tap into that, I can see that over time, let's go back to the time where women would gather in circle and the medicine would practice plant medicine and herbs, and then there was a time when everybody where the patriarchy wanted to repress the feminine energy, and all of a sudden they were labeled witches, or they were doing something that was black magic. And back in those days, I've worked a lot around this with women. For your own survival, sometimes you had to say the name of another sister, because otherwise they would kill you or your family. So there's a lot of betrayal out of survival that happened over time in history.
Wow.
So I think that's kind of where that originated, that original wound of sisters not trusting each other kind of comes from that. And that could just be a symbol, but that's something that when I tune into it, that comes up very strongly. Now, we've all been in girl groups where there's gossiping, where they might steal your boyfriend or your man, or they say they're nice in your face, but they're actually stabbing you in the back. We've all been in situations like that. And when I work with groups of women and we come together in life settings, there's so much healing that goes on among the women. So I think it's sometimes even more important to heal the sisterhood before we start healing the feminine and masculine. But we can do everything at the same time, luckily. And I feel it starts from within. Let's say that you're in a situation where you don't trust another woman. Let's pull that in and like, okay, where, on what level, and what aspect of my life am I not trusting myself? Or what happened? Did something happen when I was a child or when I was younger that I haven't really processed yet? That's where the timeline release comes in really handy, when we go on to our timeline and start healing and working with the younger self and with the inner child, and really, like, it's almost like a soul retrieval that we're doing, because parts of ourselves that got wounded, that got hurt, that got disappointed, that got abandoned, it's almost like they're frozen in time. And we want to move on. And it's like an aspect of us is not there. So it's like a missing piece of the puzzle in our heart that we need to work with, retrieve, invite into the now moment so that we can move into the future. So yeah, the sister work, but it starts within. It really starts within.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see when women, and I think, again, there's so many collective messages that are coming up for us right now that women, it is time for us to connect so that we can mirror for each other that this being safe and that space, that vulnerability is welcome. And that just allows us to tap into that power so that we can shine our light and, for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, but especially as we're having this calling to do some special work, whether we've figured out what that is quite yet or not, but it's so powerful. So the work that you do is so amazing. The word abandonment recently, it was a lot of my wounding growing up, and I was recognizing recently about how many ways in which I've abandoned myself. So it's like we're thinking about it as the external culprit, if you will, but like you said, I like how you said about turning the mirror towards ourselves. How are we using these things against ourselves? So
yeah, and also becoming aware of where that originated, so that you can work with that original wound. Because even when in certain situations you feel like you've abandoned yourself, it is something that was programmed into you, this abandonment being somewhat normal.
Right.
And also on a soul level, we come in with specific lessons that we need to learn. So honoring, like, oh wow, I came in with this desire on a soul level to experience abandonment, and then to find that, we're all part of the one. So where am I abandoning myself, and how can I fully, truly show up for myself and feel whole and complete, so that when somebody comes in, if you're attracting a relationship, he doesn't have to fill up the hole of abandonment. Because usually when we're working with abandonment energy, we will attract partners that have a fear of commitment, because the fear of abandonment and the fear of commitment are polarized. They're attracting, magnetizing. But it's so beautiful, because that soul came in to teach you that. Of course, they're completely oblivious to it. They don't know it. But from a soul level, it's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I love the term that you have, the de-armoring.
Yes.
So how exhausting has it been for us to walk around with our shields of protection? It's like, oh,
yeah. And it's a shield that we're holding up, so it's freaking heavy. And then we have all these walls around us that also prevent beautiful things from coming in. Every once in a while, something hops over the wall anyway,
Yeah.
good or bad. So it's deconstructing these walls, it's de-armoring all of the layers of protection. But at the same time, because that can feel scary, like, wow, if I let go of my shields or my walls, then I feel totally vulnerable. But what we're actually doing it is we're replacing it with a powerful armor of light that is not heavy at all, because it's there through our intention. And it's no longer having to control, because see, it's again from the masculine,
Yeah.
controlling, manipulating it, instead of just trusting and allowing, but at the same time with clear boundaries and learning from our past experiences, using our discernment. Hey, I've already been here. How do I want to? I'm a different person now. The same thing cycles back.
Right.
But who am I in the now moment when something recycles in my life? I always love when people say, why does that always happen to me?
Right.
It's like, let's look at that. Why? Yes, it's a
Great
question.
question.
Yeah, work with that. It's a beautiful gift to see the patterns, and then you can start working with them.
Yeah. Is there any advice that you give, like, for people who've been in long-term relationships? Because I think sometimes, single people, like, we maybe stay in relationships longer than we should because we think success of a relationship has to do with duration. And yet there are those beautiful relationships I've seen that have stood the test of time, but it's like, how do you release things that made, like, those little insignificant things that accumulate over time?
Yeah, it's, this is a week workshop, this question. But you can start,
Noted, by the way.
you can, and not that I'm doing workshops around that, but I'm just saying that as an example of that. This is just such a big topic.
Yeah.
But it starts by really internally making some shifts and looking at what is the purpose of the relationship. And in my opinion, the purpose of a relationship is to grow and expand. And that could go through hardship. So you could maybe be attracting people that really push all of your buttons and trigger the hell out of you. Or it could be somebody that is so supportive and so loving that it supports you into expansion. So, there's two major categories if you're into growth and expansion. So it's looking at, like, okay, what's the purpose? Some people are in a relationship just because they're afraid to be on their own financially.
Yeah.
That's look at that as well, if you're in that situation. I do feel that we're constantly, born again into new versions of ourselves. And the same thing happens to our partners. So if you're in a long-term relationship, having open communication and having the courage to have conversations that maybe in your mind, you're making up a story that if I have this conversation with my partner, that may be the end of it. This may kill the relationship. But having the courage to practice nonviolent communication, which I love, to have the courage to have that open communication. This is who I am. This is what I want. Who are you? What does this mean to you? I think it's fascinating that, let's say I talk about connection. Connection might mean something completely different to you than it means to me. And it is definitely going to mean something completely different for my partner. So having the conversation and saying, or support. I had this conversation with my partner, and something wasn't working. And I felt like I was giving so much. I was so supportive. And I didn't feel any gratitude or any acknowledgement for that. So we had a conversation about support. So I had to ask him, what is your definition of support? What would it mean to you if I fully support you? How would that look like? What would that feel like? And I realized that whatever I was doing from my perspective, what I thought was supportive, had nothing to do with what was important to him. So I was literally draining all of my time, my energy.
Ooh.
for nothing, because it wasn't received anyway. So in a long-term relationship, having a proper sit down and saying, hey, we've been doing this for a while, let's reassess connection, support, communication,
Mm.
romance, any type of word you can pick, and you'll notice that your partner probably has their very own unique definition and
Yeah, that sounds
how they
like
would like that to show up in their life.
yeah, that sounds like a juicy conversation to have instead, like you said, rather than fearing that conversation, like
Yeah,
spark some new juice in the relationship. I love that.
yeah.
And speaking of juice, I love the womb blessing that you share. So shall I say it? The womb is not a place to store fear and pain. The womb is a space to create and give birth to new life. That is just gorgeous. Can you tell us about the origin of that?
Yes, so that was brought to us in the West by Marcela Lobos, and you can Google the 13th rite of the Munaiki. And Marcela brought that to the West from the South American jungle, from the womb keepers there. And it's so beautiful, because when you even just those two sentences really show you what it's all about. We as women hold on to so much in our womb space: traumatic memories, emotions, the wound of abandonment.
Mm.
It's all stored in our womb space. I look at it as a giant database that has snapshots of all of our experiences, and it's just at a certain. That's why a lot of women also have, like, maybe a little bit of fat, or they're holding on to something in their bellies, and
Ooh.
it's like, oh, how can I get rid of my belly? Wow, start working with the energy first. Of course, whatever you eat will be a factor as well,
But maybe it's not the muffin
but
top.
it, but but it's your emotional baggage that you're holding on to in that part of the body. So when we start doing the womb work, we work on a deep cell level, like what is stored in the cell memory of the sexual reproductive system, because it's not only the womb, it's the sexual reproductive system. And doing that sexual de-armoring, doing that womb healing work, again, it's like removing those shields, removing those walls and layers of protection. And then it's like, okay, what do I want to fill this creative center that I have? I can create anything. I mean, we can create a baby, we can create projects, we can create beautiful food, we can create songs or music. And for women, it all comes from that womb energy, that creative energy that is connected to the infinite womb of creation. So clearing that out, even any type of sexual interaction that we had, wanted or unwanted, there's somehow some energy, information stored in that part of our body. So what I like to do is say to women, even if it's good, maybe you had good memories, or maybe it were not so good memories, let's just clear it all out, open it up, and see what you can invite into your reality, something completely new.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I just love the whole thing. And speaking of beautiful, did you say you might share with us a visualization with the Ho'oponopono?
Yes, yeah, I would love that. Yes, yeah. So maybe we can go in that direction of where women connect to their womb space to see what they're holding on, and if there's anything that is still blocking them. And we'll do just a short visualization. If they want to go into a deeper practice, they can go to my YouTube channel. I have the womb healing there, which is a longer version and a little bit different. I'm going to do something a little bit different today, just as a little taste, so that they can feel if it's something for them or not. Okay, so I would like to invite everybody to just close their eyes and just become aware of the breath, noticing what's going on in the body. Is the breath situated in the chest? And if it is, just set your intention to drop it down into the belly and just feel a little bit of heaviness in the base of your spine as you place all of your awareness and your focus on the base of your spine and your pelvic area. And I love to connect to Mother Earth because that is our source of unconditional love. Our Divine Mother loves us like no other mother can love us. And just take a deep breath in and imagine a beautiful column of light moving from the base of your spine through all the layers of the earth until it reaches the center of the earth. And I like to imagine a beautiful energy of crystals. I like to imagine a crystal temple inside of Mother Earth. And if I connect to that crystal temple, I can recharge, rejuvenate, and source from that crystal energy anytime I place my awareness onto that specific place. And just imagine connecting in, allowing that column of light to connect, align, and attune with that crystal energy. And by the power of your imagination, the power of your intention and attention, just pull up, inhaling, pulling up that crystal energy through the column of light into your physical body. And just imagine filling up your whole womb space with that beautiful crystal energy. Every breath you take is a healing movement, bringing in life force, oxygen, blood flow, all of that yumminess inside of the womb space. And you can use your energetic eyes to look what is going on inside of the womb space. And allow that crystal energy to illuminate any spots that feel desensitized or oversensitive, any spots that feel dark or numb, cut off from source. Just imagine that you are able to get a really good visual of all of that. You're able to pick it up. What is going on? What are you holding on to in the womb? And just allow your memory to wander down your timeline from the present moment all the way to when you were a little baby. And was there anything on your timeline, any specific age, where you felt unsafe, where you felt unsafe to be a girl, to be a woman? And just imagine that that energy got stored deep into the cells, in the cell memory of your sexual reproductive system. And just pull in that beautiful crystal energy and imagine that crystal energy placing a bubble of light around all of those emotions and memories. And you can use the power of your breath to then take those bubbles of energy and send them into the earth for healing and transformation. So take a deep breath in, a healing movement into the womb, into the sexual reproductive system. And on the exhale, just letting it go, sending it into the earth for healing and transformation. And now let's connect that crystal energy, not only in the womb space, but let's also connect it to the voice, to your throat. And just imagine that if you were to look at a picture of your vocal cords, it looks exactly like the yoni, like your vagina. So see that connection, become aware of that connection between your femininity and your ability to speak up, your self-expression, your communication center. And notice if there is anything going going on in your throat, in your communication center, something that got blocked. Maybe something happened to you and you were not able to say no. You were not able to say stop. You were not able to share this information with anybody. Or maybe you did share the information and it got dismissed, or somebody was mad at you, or they just didn't listen to you. So tuning into any and all circumstances, events that happened in regards to communication. When you wanted to express something and it was just not allowed or not received. So take a deep breath into your communication center. And on the exhale, I want you to open up the voice and make a sound, giving yourself full permission to be heard, to speak up. So take a deep breath in, pulling in that energy from the earth into the throat, and open up the voice. Make a sound, whatever sound it is. It could be soft, it could be loud. But just give yourself full permission to open up and ask your body to work with you. One more time, deep breath in, and on the exhale, opening up the voice, make a sound. And just imagine that by making that sound, you are giving that energy a way out of the body, out of the cell memory. So every time you take a deep breath in and open the voice with this clear intention to release, you are really liberating your voice, your communication. So let's do it one more time. Deep breath in, and just give yourself that freedom to really open up. And focus all of your attention back onto the pelvic area, back to the womb space. And use your energetic eyes to scan your body and your energy field from all sides, the front, the back, the left, the right. And I want you to notice if there are any toxic or unhealthy connections that were made that are linked to sexual energy, sexual contact, wanted or unwanted. Maybe you can see some cords of connection moving from your body, going to other people or circumstances. And just set your intention to use the Ho'oponopono to dissolve all of these connections so that you can pull all of your energy back into your body, into the core of who you are, so that any and all energy leaks and drains can be stopped, can be repaired and restored. And if you like to work with a team of guide and guardians, this is the time to call them in and ask them to support you, to dissolve all of these toxic cords of connection that are going from you, from your body, your energy field, connecting in with other people or other circumstances. And we can use the Ho'oponopono. Just imagine saying this beautiful Hawaiian prayer of forgiveness to yourself. Because this might be the first time that you are noticing that there are still some energy cords or toxic connections between you and somebody or something else. So be gentle and loving towards yourself and just say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I thank you. And just imagine that every time you repeat the Ho'oponopono, you are setting an intention to pull back the energy back into the body with an energy of self-forgiveness and self-love, taking back your power right now. And just imagine the energy going back to the other person. Imagine them dissolving in the distance, focusing all of your attention on yourself. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I thank you. And imagine that your team of guides and guardians is supporting you, helping you to repair and restore any holes, any openings that may have been made in your energetic field, in your body, where those energy cords and toxic connections used to be. So just allow them to use that beautiful crystal energy to repair and restore your energy field in your physical body. And 2 more times, use the Ho'oponopono and say it to yourself, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I thank you. And again, pulling in all of that energy back into the core, and just notice how much energy was draining from you and how good it feels to pull it all back. Just reclaim it, pull it all back into the body. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I thank you. And just place both hands onto your heart, making a vow, making a commitment to take better care of yourself, to be more aware of where you're giving your power away, where there are any energy leaks, and setting the intention to start working with the voice, with your communication center, to speak from a place of love, deep self-love, in all of your communications with all the people you are in relationship with, including yourself, noticing how you talk to yourself. And just imagine all of the times that you were unloving towards yourself, that you judged yourself. And one last time, use the Ho'oponopono prayer to ask for forgiveness, to grant yourself that forgiveness. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I thank you. And once again, focusing all of your attention onto your own body, your connection with the earth, and tap into the energy of Mother Earth. Tap into that unconditional love. She will always love you. She will always support you. She will always accept you just the way you are. And ask Mother Earth to teach you that level of love so that you can give that level of unconditional love to yourself. And once you've practiced this over and over again, then you can start sharing it with other people around you, attracting new people into your life that are more in alignment with this energy of unconditional love and deep compassion and radical forgiveness. And just imagine what your life would look like and feel like if you loved yourself so deeply. And one last time, taking in a deep, slow breath in, and just hand it over to your team of guides and guardians. If there are still any cords or any connections that need to be healed or restored, just hand it over to them. Trust that they will do everything to support you. And just pull all of your energy back into the body, becoming fully aware of the base of your spine, sitting down on the chair or the couch that you're in. Taking a deep breath in, bringing all of your awareness back into this now moment. And start wiggling your toes, moving your hands, maybe stretching the body. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes.
Wow. It's so spacious and light, beautiful. Thank you.
And this was just a short little, exercise.
Mm.
On my YouTube channel, I have longer videos, topics that are, I have a cord cutting, ex-partner cord cutting video. I have other cord cutting videos. There's the whole Ho'oponopono, there's the womb healing. So this was a little mixture of different things. But if they want to go deeper into certain areas, there's a video for everything. And in every Sunday in August, I'm offering an online workshop all about sexual de-armoring.
Beautiful. So what I like how you invited us to imagine what our lives would look like on the other side of this. So,
yeah, it's important to do that.
So beautiful. Well, I will definitely be put a connection both to your YouTube and to your website so that they can explore and learn more about you. Check out those website, the workshops that you've got coming up. And just so grateful for you sharing this beautiful, beautiful work and the invitation for all of us to embody for ourselves what that divine feminine energy can look like, strong and beautiful and just so intuitive and ease and flow and all these beautiful things we desire in our lives. So
thank you for inviting me.
it's been so much fun. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.